Every company that runs software in the cloud has to answer one question. How do you create and manage all that infrastructure, the servers, the databases, the networks, without it turning into chaos? Over the years, the industry figured out a pretty good answer to that. But then, companies started growing. Teams got bigger, services multiplied, and that answer stopped being enough. In this video, we are going to look at what that problem actually looks like and how the best engineering teams in the world have learned to solve it. We'll start from the very basics of how infrastructure is managed in the cloud and work our way up to where that breaks down at scale, and look at what companies actually do to fix it. Let's get started. When you build a web application and deploy it to the cloud, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. Your code runs on a server somewhere. That server needs an operating system, specific software installed, the right port open, the right environment variable set. If your app uses a database, that database needs to be created and configured too. Same for your networking, your storage, your security rules. All of that is your infrastructure. In the early days, the way you set this up was simple. You log into a server, you run some commands, you install what you need, you configure what needs to be configured. One server, one engineer, done. And that is completely manageable. Now imagine your app starts growing. You need a second server for load balancing, a third for background job processor, a separate database server, a caching layer. And now you have a staging environment that should look exactly like production. So you need all of that again. Multiply this across a team of 10 engineers, each making changes, and you start to see the problem. How does anyone know what is installed where? What if two engineers configure the same server differently? What if the person who set everything up leaves the company? And this is what used to happen. Every server ended up slightly different from the last one, configured by hand by different people at different times. Nobody had a complete picture of what was actually running. And we call these snowflake servers, because like snowflakes, no two were exactly alike. Now, when AWS became popular, teams tried to get around this with Python scripts and tools like Chef and Puppet. You could write a script that provisioned an EC2 instance, configure it, and install your dependencies. It worked, but it was fragile. The scripts expected things to already be set up a certain way. People sometimes made manual changes, which caused things to go out of sync, and there was no easy way to see what would change before running the script. Then came CloudFormation, AWS's native way to define infrastructure in JSON or YAML templates. You declare what you want: a VPC, a load balancer, an RDS instance, and AWS provisions it. And that was a big step forward because now your infrastructure had a definition you could version and repeat. The downside was that CloudFormation was tightly coupled to AWS. The syntax was verbose, and for anything complex, it became hard to manage quickly. Around the same time, tools like Ansible were solving a related but different problem. Ansible is not really about provisioning cloud resources. It is about configuring what is already running, installing software, managing users, pushing config files across a fleet of servers. It is procedural, meaning you could write the steps you want to happen rather than describing the end state. A lot of teams used Ansible and CloudFormation together. CloudFormation to create the infrastructure, Ansible to configure it. Terraform changed the picture. It took the declarative approach of CloudFormation but made it cloud agnostic. So the same workflow works whether you are on AWS, GCP Azure, or all three. And it introduced a clean separation between planning and applying. You run Terraform plan and see exactly what is going to change, and only then run Terraform apply. That preview step alone removed a whole category of anxiety from infrastructure changes. And here is what that looks like in practice. So say you want to create an S3 bucket on AWS. In Terraform, that is like this. You commit that file to Git, run Terraform plan, and Terraform shows you exactly what it is going to create before touching anything. Then Terraform apply provisions the bucket. No AWS console, no manual steps, no hoping that someone remembered to add the right tag. Anyone on the team can reproduce the same bucket in a different environment just by changing a variable. And if something changes unexpectedly, you have a Git history that tells you when and who. For teams in the early stages, this is usually enough. The problem shows up later. When the team grows, the number of services multiplies and the dependencies between them start getting complicated. And that is where we are headed next. Terraform is a provisioning tool, an exceptionally good one. Its job is to take a desired state, compare it to the actual state, and reconcile the difference. It does that job very well. What it does not do is orchestrate, and orchestration is a completely different class of problem. So imagine you have a networking stack, the foundational layer of your cloud setup. This includes things like your VPC, which is essentially your private network inside AWS, your subnets, which divide the network into smaller segments, and your security groups, which controls what traffic is allowed in and out. On top of that, you have a Kubernetes cluster that depends on this network to exist and can be configured correctly before it can even start. And on top of that, you have the actual application services running inside that cluster. In real organization, these are three separate Terraform workspaces because they have different life cycles, different owners, and different teams deploying them at different cadences. So now let's say your networking team needs to update the IP address ranges, specifically what is called the CIDR block. Think of CIDR as the address plan for your network. It defines how many IP addresses your network has and how they are divided up. So if you are expanding your infrastructure or onboarding a new region, you often need to change this. Simple enough in isolation, but this change ripples outward. The Kubernetes clusters was configured assuming a specific IP range. The application services have firewall rules tied to those addresses. So who runs what in what order? If the network change succeeds but the Kubernetes update fails halfway through, what is the recovery path? Who needs to approve what before any of this starts? None of these questions are answered by Terraform. They get answered by your team through a combination of Slack messages, Confluence docs that are 6 months out of date, and whoever happens to know the system well enough to remember the order things need to go in. That informal coordination works when the team is small. As the organization scales, it becomes a liability in a few specific ways. The first is drift. Your actual infrastructure quietly diverges from what is in your code because someone made a manual change during an incident at 2 a.m. and never committed it. By Monday morning, what Terraform thinks is true and what is actually running are slightly different. Over time, those differences accumulate. The second is ordering failures. A deployment succeeds in isolation, but breaks something downstream because the dependency was not modeled explicitly. You find out when the alert fires, not when the plan runs. And the third is compliance gaps. Your approval process lives in people's head or in Slack threads, not in the system. So when an auditor asks for a record of who approved this infrastructure change and when, you are going back through message history. And this is where infrastructure management started to evolve. Companies realized the problem was not just writing infrastructure as code. The real challenge was managing changes safely, consistently, and with proper visibility at scale. The pattern you see consistently at companies operating at scale is that they build an orchestration layer on top of their ISA tools. A control plane that treats infrastructure deployments the way a good CI/CD system treats application deployments. This layer does a few specific things that Terraform itself does not handle. The first is making dependencies explicit. Your networking stack, your Kubernetes cluster, your application layer are no longer just separate workspaces that happen to be related. They are connected nodes in a graph. When the network changes, the system knows which stacks depend on it, passes the outputs automatically, and triggers the downstream runs in the right order. And that tribal knowledge gets encoded in the platform rather than living in someone's head. The second is moving governance into the workflow rather than adding it at the end. Think about how code reviews work in a good engineering organization. You catch problems before a PR merges, not after it deploys. Infrastructure governance should work the same way. Instead of a policy check at the very end of a run that either blocks everything or gets rubber stamped, you want policy evaluation happening at multiple points. When a PR is opened, when a plan is generated, when an approval is requested. And the third is continuous drift detection. Not a weekly cron job that generates a report nobody reads, but actual detection that can trigger automated remediation. If someone makes a manual change during an incident, the system knows about it. And once things stabilize, it can bring the infrastructure back to the desired state. And that's where the sponsor of this video, Spacelift, comes into the picture. It's interesting because the platform is built around the exact problems and patterns we have been talking about throughout this video. Spacelift is an infrastructure orchestration platform, the control plane layer that sits above your ISE tools. Spacelift handles Terraform, TerraGrunt, OpenTofu, Ansible, CloudFormation, and more from a single control plane. Most organizations at scale are not running Terraform shops. You might be using Ansible for configuration management alongside Terraform for provisioning, or evaluating OpenTofu as the open source fork of Terraform given the licensing changes HashiCorp made. A single orchestration layer across all of them means you're not locked into one vendor's ecosystem. Now, in Terraform, you typically split your infrastructure into multiple workspaces, each managing a different piece. One workspace handles your networking, another provisions your application servers, another sets up your database. They are separate by design because different teams own them and they change at different rates. In Spacelift, these workspaces are called stacks. And the key thing Spacelift adds is the ability to wire them together. Say your networking stack creates a VPC and outputs the subnet IDs. Your application stack, which provisions EC2 instances, need those subnet IDs to know where to place the servers. You declare that the application stack depends on the network stack. When networking finishes, Spacelift automatically picks up those outputs, passes them to the application stack, and triggers its run. No one has to manually copy values across or remember to trigger the next step. The whole sequence runs in order automatically. And finally, the policy engine. Spacelift uses OPA, Open Policy Agent, to evaluate policy continuously throughout the workflow, not just at the end. So say your security team has a rule that any change to a production environment requires manual approval from a senior engineer. You write that as a policy. When a plan runs against the production stack, the policy engine checks it. If the plan touches production resources, it holds a run and requests approval before anything is applied. You can also write policies that block deployments if resources are not tagged correctly, or if a change would open a security group to the public internet. These checks happen before they apply, not after something breaks. And there is also a layer called Spacelift Intelligence, a natural language interface for diagnosing, governing, and deploying infrastructure. What it does is reduce the routine Terraform work for non-critical and ephemeral workloads, so senior engineers can focus on the harder problems. So if you're already on Terraform Cloud and evaluating whether switching makes sense, Spacelift has a migration kit that maps your existing workspaces to stacks, reconnects your VCS, and brings your state with you. Point Spacelift at your current remote state backend, verify versions, and run things in parallel before cutting over. Most teams do not need to rewrite anything to get started. Spacelift has a free trial, link is in the description. Infrastructure as code solved the repeatability problem. Terraform did it well, but at scale, the harder problem is coordination between teams, between environments, between services that depend on each other. If you want me to go much deeper with hands-on labs showing how large companies actually create and manage infrastructure at scale, do let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like and subscribe to ByteMonk. I'll see you in the next one.